Hello, I'm Barbara Sills Nevergold, co-host of Illuminations, a production of the Uncrowned Queens Institute. I'm standing in front of 36 Nash Street, home of the legendary pastor of the Michigan Avenue Baptist Church, Reverend J. Edward Nash. In a moment, we're going to go inside the home, which has been described as a time capsule of a period in Buffalo's Black history. We're going to find out just why Reverend Nash and Mrs. Nash were so important in the history of Buffalo's Black community as we visit their home and see how they lived 75 years ago. Join us as we enter the home and take a tour. Hi, we're inside the Nash house, and our tour guide today is George K. Arthur.
Good.
Another Buffalo treasure.
Oh, how about that?
George is a retired Common Council president, Buffalo Common Council president, but he retired and then he started doing all kinds of other things, and one of which was as president of the Michigan Street Preservation Corporation, is the restoration of this wonderful house.
Yes. Good.
So tell us about that. Tell us, I know this is a project that's really dear to your heart.
We have been open now exactly 1 year and 7 days. We opened May 5th last year, and it took us approximately, I'd say about 8 years to put this house back together the way it is, and also to talk the city into putting that little passive park that's adjacent to the house. The total cost is about, I'd say, close to $1.5 million all total. That within this immediate area.
My goodness.
And what you'll see is that when you go upstairs, everything you see upstairs is original. It was the Nash's furniture. There's a few items that we had to buy to match in, but everything you see right there was as it was when they first moved into this house in 1925. 1925, Reverend and Mrs. Nash got married, and they moved in, they bought this house, moved into the house. It was originally a two-family. They lived upstairs, and they had a young lady who lived downstairs. And the interesting thing we like to tell is that the lady who lived downstairs was a dancer in the old club Moon Room. Okay, and so very much so. And in those days, if you look around, there were no locks on the doors. And the Nashes, as I said, lived upstairs. She lived downstairs, and they stayed here all this time. Well, Reverend Nash, he retired in '53, and he died in 1957. Mrs. Nash continued to live here until 1985, when she went into a nursing home, and then she died 2 years later in 1987. And it was in 1999 when we, the Michigan Street Preservation Corporation, came in and went upstairs. We were trying to put a museum in the basement of the church. Didn't work out. So we came over here to say, hey, we can't do it for a number of reasons. Happened to go upstairs, and we looked and we says, here it is. It was like
a time capsule.
Time capsule that was just opened. And we thank Jesse and his family, because they donated this house and everything that was in here to the Michigan Street Preservation, so long as we make it available to the public.
Okay. Well, for those people who don't know about exactly where this is, and the church we're talking about is the Michigan Avenue Baptist Church, the Reverend Nash pastor.
Yes.
This house is where?
This house is, the church is on Michigan Avenue, at 511 Michigan Avenue, which when he first started, it was just to be Michigan Street. Then they later changed it to Michigan Avenue. And right behind that, this is now Nash Street. And originally it was part of Arsenal. Another landmark that used to be here was the Little Harlem. And if you went to the location of the Little Harlem and you looked east, you'll see the Nash house. We're the only house that's on the block, almost on the corner. Across the street from us is the Broadway Barns, as they call it. That used to be the 65th Regimental Armory. Back in the early 1900s, and you can still see remnants of that building. And from the armory, it became what was then known as the Broadway Auditorium. And that's where a lot of the boxers and the others used to train and hold the boxing matches and the basketball games. And then from there, they moved to what is now the Memorial Auditorium, the one that they're getting ready to tear down. And this then became the Broadway Barn. So those are our landmarks.
Okay, all right. Because we want people to be able to find this when they come and visit.
Yes.
But also, when we came in the front door, we came into this room, which is essentially the museum shop.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So before we move into looking at some of the house's exhibits, I'd like people to know what the hours of the visit are when the house is open and the cost if there's an admission fee.
We're open on Thursdays and Sundays from 11 to 4 p.m. And there is a fee for individuals of $10, and there are group rates. Now, if you want a tour on the days other than Thursday or Saturday, you can call here and we can make arrangements to have groups. As we do, we have quite a few groups that will come in like on Mondays and Tuesdays at different hours from early in the morning to the afternoon. We've had, like last week, we've had the group, the Great Cliff. The Great Cliff came in and they toured in the evening, and then I guess they went to dinner or something afterwards, which has happened with a lot of the organizations. We're making special arrangements for that as well.
And give us a telephone number. We'll put it up.
856-4490.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
So when we come into the gift shop, and again, because we want to see some of the house, but we want to encourage people to come and visit. So we're not going to show you everything. We're just going to show you enough to kind of whet your appetite, so that that will then want to visit.
These here, up here, are specially designed posters. These posters were designed by Travers and Collins Advertising Company, especially for the Nash House. And what we do is that they're for sale, and also they're gifts for the different levels of membership that you may get. So one of those goes with the membership. Something I do want to show you that will make you proud. We have all these books. And I want you to notice the three on the end.
I noticed them having to do with Uncrowned Queens.
Uncrowned Queens. That we have Eva Doyle's and all of the local historians. What we try to do is to feature some of their books that are here because they tell the story locally. And that's what we do upstairs.
Okay, we're very pleased about that. And we hope we're going to have another volume with Uncrowned Kings soon.
And it'll be on this show.
Okay, wonderful.
Right.
So why don't we take a look at the downstairs?
Yes, why don't we come back this way? This is what we call our orientation room. And it does a couple of things. That in this room, that in case we have individuals who have handicaps and wheelchairs or cannot mobilize and go upstairs, we have a video that we show on this monitor that not only tells a little bit of the history of the house, but of the area, but it also shows everything upstairs. So one can sit down here and go on tour all upstairs.
Oh, that's very important.
In this case here, we have what we call our Buffalo collection. We have, like here you find the weeklies by Holly's Weekly, who was Reverend Holly, who was started his weekly in 1924, a little bit, the same year as the Buffalo Criterion, but a little bit before then. And he wrote, published, edited, did the whole thing from his home and then on Riley Street. And this was one of the first black publications in Western New York. And we're the only ones to have that collection.
And Reverend Nash kept all of this material?
Kept all this. These stamps here, there's some stamps here that we're still researching. These were Buffalo stamps from 1907. Okay. And we're looking for somebody who was around those days to tell us what they were all about. We don't know just yet.
That's why we say this is a time capsule, because he kept
capsule.
all of this material.
Yeah. In this counter here, we've shown a cross section. This is when Marion B. Anderson came to Buffalo, and this picture was taken on Eagle Street. There you'll find the late Cleo Reed and Judge B. Carr. And our guess is that she was then at the St. Luke's AME Zion, which was on Eagle Street, by pastored by Reverend Henry Durham at the time. This was Ray Jackson. This was Mrs. Nash's brother. Ray Jackson was then one of the organizers of the Colored Musicians Club and Union. He later became the most imperial potentate of the Prince Hall Shriners of North America in jurisdiction. In these cases here, what we're showing here is this was a gift, May 1st, 1905, from the Talberts, William B. Talbert, Mary B. Talbert, and their daughter, to Reverend Nash on his birthday. And the interesting thing about this book, and it's Longfellow's Hiawatha, is that it's the same year as the Niagara movement.
Oh.
And that was a gift during that particular
1905.
1905. And this was the inscription that said what we did was that we blew it up.
Now, let me just make a little plug for Uncrowned Queens and Kings here, too, because if people want to find out more about some of these individuals, like Ray Jackson, you know, like Mary Talbert, and certainly Reverend Nash himself, and Mrs. Nash, they can go to our website at www.uncrownedqueens or Uncrowned Kings. So I had to get that plug.
Let me give you another plug.
Oh, good.
This sign, this poster here, as you know, was a gift from the Uncrowned Queens to the Michigan Street via Max Sloan. And when you look at it, it looks as though it's an ordinary church poster. But there's a lot more history here that tells us. Number one, when you look down here, you see 36 Potter Street. That tells us that this went on the church either 1925 or after. Well, the reason we say that is because Reverend Nash didn't buy this house until 1925. So the address tells us that. As you know, the Christian Cultural Congress was started by Mary B. Talbert, and it was Reverend Nash's way of being a politician, if I may say, you know, because he was torn between her, Booker T. Washington, Du Bois, and all the rest, and he let her do her thing that way. But it tells us that he continued on. When she died in 1923, he continued on out of respect to her, you know, but it also tells us that, you know, this Wednesdays, the prayers and the services, because the church was the central focal point. Booker T. Washington, we have flyers that says that when he came to Buffalo, he wanted to meet with the colored citizens only. They met at Michigan Avenue Baptist Church, and at that time, you know, in the church, by invitation. If you didn't have an invitation, and if you weren't a person of color, so you couldn't get into the meeting, he wanted to say one thing to them, and then earlier in the day, he met with the white community. He got money out of the white community, and he gave us an update. So
but I want to say about the sign, Peggy and I were so excited when Mr. Sloan came to us and said he had this sign, and we knew immediately that it needed to come back home to the museum and to the church, proximity to the church in which it belonged.
You could say this sign was up on that building for approximately 28 years. Because when he retired in '53, then it was Reverend Porter Phillip